Doctor Who Series 14 filming has resumed, with our first proper bits of public location filming, which has been very interesting to witness because obviously when they're out in public, we do spot certain details, certain bits and pieces that you just don't get when they're in the studio. I should mention as well, very briefly, that filming did start for Series 14 at the tail end of last year on the 5th of December. At the time, I had the flu, so I didn't do a video about it as such, but, to be honest, there's not been all that much to see. Like I say, basically all of it up to this point has either been in a studio or, private locations or locations that we don't know about. We did get one or two glimpses of what was going on, some most significantly the costume reveals for the 15th Doctor and for Ruby Sunday, and that picture from Ncuti's Instagram of the TARDIS at Cardiff Bay Barrage, where some sort of set, relating to the sea in some way, like a barrage or a dock or a harbour or something, had been constructed. And of course as well, we got that sort of picture of the clapperboard in front of the TARDIS doors to announce that filming had begun. So essentially they completed 2 weeks of filming back in December, and then they had the Christmas break, like you do, and then they've resumed filming just a couple of days ago on the 3rd of January in Cardiff city centre. The location in question is a particular retail unit at the Capital Shopping Centre in Cardiff on Queen Street, which is right in the centre of the city, and it's a street that I've walked down myself when I've been to Cardiff in the past. I believe the exact retail unit in question used to be a Boots outlet. Incidentally, as well, Queen Street is not a stranger to Doctor Who. It has featured in the show before, most prominently in The End of the World, when the Doctor and Rose come back to Earth to have chips. And then at the end of Deep Breath, when the Doctor and Clara go for coffee, and also right at the end of the season as well, right at the end of Death in Heaven, when Clara, supposedly leaves the TARDIS. And what they basically did was they took over this retail unit and they turned it into a campaign office, it would seem, for a political party named Albion. So they put a new sign up, they put posters in the window, like campaign posters and things. They put a big Union Jack sort of in the windows as well, clearly going for this thing of like a populist British party. And they also dressed the interior of this retail unit, so turning that into the interior of this campaign office with, various bits of set dressing. I think there were like bits of paperwork pertaining to election results and office furniture, desks and chairs and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, it looks like they kind of started off filming inside and then moved outside later on, kind of into the evening. Someone snapped some photos and video footage of extras sort of lined up in the Capital Shopping Centre, sort of waiting to be brought on, who look to be kind of dressed as Albion Party supporters, wearing Albion t-shirts maybe, or suits, or Albion hats, bearing a striking resemblance to those worn by Trump supporters. And the whole thing basically seemed to be themed around, obviously, this political party and a UK general election where this party has been successful and they've got all their supporters there to kind of celebrate and have a party. There was one intriguing individual plastered all over the party posters, and his name was written on them as well, and that would be Roger A.P. Gwilliam, who appears to be the MP for this party in this area, or maybe even the leader, or the prospective leader, who knows. But whatever the case, he seems to be the figurehead for the party, at least in this particular area. I believe the actor in question has been identified as Aneurin Barnard, who is not someone I'm familiar with myself, but I think he has been in some other stuff. And although it's not 100% clear whether he was actually on set for these scenes, he did cast a shadow over proceedings due to his name and face being plastered all over the place. And we had various slogans on the posters that he was on as well, so vote for Gwilliam, a bigger, better, bolder Britain, which seems to be like a kind of party slogan. There was one poster sort of heralding him as the quote-unquote space saviour, which is a particularly interesting one, because obviously with this being Doctor Who, that could imply alien involvement. And apparently Millie Gibson was on set as well as Ruby Sunday, but she was only sort of fleetingly glimpsed. I think all of her scenes were inside or kind of well undercover, so there wasn't too much to see there. But yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on here, lots of stuff to speculate about. Could this party Albion and this kind of figurehead, Roger A.P. Gwilliam, could they be a new nemesis for the 15th Doctor? Potentially, the overarching nemesis for Series 14? Because yeah, this does kind of give off sinister vibes. I think it would be fair to say it does sort of ring alarm bells with this kind of imagery of, a populist political party, kind of harking to imagery of fascism potentially, authoritarianism, all this kind of stuff. Quite a right-wing looking party, I think it would be fair to say, with all this kind of stuff about a bigger, better, bolder Britain, with harking back to old ideas of empire and stuff and what Britain has been in the past. Because as well, if you're not aware, the word Albion kind of is an old term for Britain, and so that kind of ties into the whole thing as well. And it wouldn't be unusual for Doctor Who, or indeed for Russell T Davies. We've seen this sort of stuff before in the show, with stuff like Jack Robertson being a very obvious surrogate for Trump, with the Prime Minister in Revolution of the Daleks, I forget her name, but she was clearly based on politicians, UK politicians, that had been seen to be pandering to Trump and to America. And there are all sorts of ideas in that episode, about politicians being in cahoots and American interference in UK politics, for America's own ends and whatever, all that kind of stuff. And then further back as well, obviously, we've seen stuff like the Slitheen, where they were kind of infiltrating British government and bits and pieces like that, the Master being Prime Minister. We've seen all these sort of ideas in the show before. I guess kind of most prominently, back in the first RTD era, and then most recently again with the Chibnall era. In terms of Russell's other work, this is very reminiscent of his show Years and Years from a few years ago, which also centred around a British populist party and a British populist politician in the form of Emma Thompson, who played Vivian Rook. And that was just handled so well in that show. It was really, really brilliant to see. Very, very frighteningly kind of realistic almost in that show. So I think a lot of people have got very excited by the glimpses we've got here and by the prospect of some of that commentary being brought into Doctor Who. Whenever you have politics like this in Doctor Who, there is kind of that added complication of, do you bring aliens into the mix? Do you kind of say, well, this is like alien interference in Earth? It's kind of like a metaphor for stuff that is actually going on in the real world, like a parallel to that? Or do you kind of go down the opposite route and say, we're not going to have aliens in this. We might make you think it's going to be aliens, but actually this is just humans doing evil stuff, doing their own thing. There's no alien involvement, and actually the real threat, the real kind of source of this evil is right here among us. It's an interesting idea which Russell and the team will no doubt have grappled with. I think, personally speaking, I do share those hopes that we're going to be seeing some of that sort of years and years stuff brought into Doctor Who, and yeah, I just hope this is a big part of the story, a big part of the series as well, potentially, not just like a one-off story or whatever. I would like to see this Roger A.P. William guy being like an overarching threat. Maybe we see him at the start of the series and he's an MP, or maybe not even an MP yet. Maybe he's like thinking of being an MP, then he becomes an MP, and then later in the series he becomes the leader of his party, and then later in the series he becomes the Prime Minister. And that all happens just in time for the finale, and then maybe you have some other threat coming in. Maybe that's when you bring in like an external alien threat, or maybe someone he's working with, or whatever, and the country kind of descends into some sort of dystopia. That would be great to see, frankly, from a storytelling point of view, from a dramatic point of view, something along those lines. So we can only cross our fingers, for that. We don't know that this is what this is, but it does kind of give off those initial indications, those initial signs that maybe we can expect to see some of that sort of years and years style stuff brought into Doctor Who for Series 14, and the prospect of that is very, very exciting indeed. That is my roundup of the filming in Cardiff city centre, centred around this political party Albion, who perhaps we might be seeing a bit more of in future location filming. Who knows? But what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the idea of, years and years style politics being brought into Doctor Who? And just more generally, what do you think is going on here? What do you think the storyline might be? What would you like the storyline to be? Do let me know down in the comments below, and stay tuned for future filming updates on this channel as and when filming occurs. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, and like I say, do subscribe for more stuff like this in the future. And if you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting this channel and the content that I make, you can find the link to my Patreon page in the video description. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.